Hello, this is William, and this is going to be the Great Commiseration Show. So, today is the first day of, May? In the year of our Lord, 2023. Hello, everybody. So, tell you a little story about William. So, when I was growing up, nothing really ever scared me. I was kind of one of the just fearless neighborhood kids. And so, when I was 10, Dad sent me up skiing to get rid of me and my brother during the winter. We'd spend all of our time up in the snow at 9,500 feet in the Rockies, skiing all day. And we learned to ski up there. And I remember my second day of skiing, we'd learned how to do the snow plow, and me and my buddy got on the wrong slope, and we ended up on a black diamond slope in doing the snow plow. That's like making a V out of your skis, trying to hold yourself onto the mountain. The problem was we were in this mogul field, and it wasn't like going downhill. It was like going off the top of one mogul and then falling to the next. And so we would like go 3 or 4 moguls and then just explode all over the hill. We'd have to pick up all our garbage, put our skis back on, stand back up, get the snow out of our ears, find our snow glasses, usually you'd step on something, break something. So you didn't have all your equipment when you got to the bottom of the hill in one piece. But that was, kind of typical. That was kind of typical of my youth. And then, I turned 16 in a pineapple field in Hawaii. I decided I wanted to go pick pineapple for the summer. And I remember my first day picking pineapple was my 16th birthday. It was a great birthday. I can remember it still to this day. So the first half of the day, I was afraid that, I might die, because it was just, incredible work. I wasn't in bad shape. I ran cross country, but it was incredibly difficult, hard work. And we had these 14,000-pound trucks. We had to fill with pineapple. And I think the whole 8-hour shift, we were able to pick like a fourth of that truck, 14 of us in a gang. And I remember, wading through the pineapple, looking for them. You couldn't see them. They're down in these bushes. The bushes are sharp. If you backed up wrong, you ended up with a spike and you're going through your pants. And I remember thinking the first half of the day, I could die here. This could kill me, but I wasn't fearful. And then in the second half of the day, I was like thinking, it's like the 6th hour of work. I was thinking to myself, self, I'm kind of disappointed I haven't died yet. It was tough work. Anyway, by the time we left picking that summer, picking pineapple, we were picking 21 trucks full. So, I'm commiserating. Anyway, I just never really felt fear. I remember one time we'd gone down to the railroad tracks. My buddy decided, hey, let's jump on this train, catch a ride on the train. So all of us went and caught a ride on this train. And so we'd run as fast as we could along the side of the train, and it right at the very top of the grade. So this train, it had got really slow. It got down to, I don't know, 20, 15 miles an hour. So we were sprinting, trying to catch up with this train. So you'd run and run and run as fast as you could, and then a ladder would come up by you. But I got the wrong ladder. So you don't want the ladders that if you fall, you go down and catch your legs or whatever under the wheels. And I got the ladder, but I couldn't quite keep up. And I looked down and I saw my feet headed towards the wheels, and I thought to myself, "Sal, this isn't too great. Maybe you better just go the other direction." So I just pushed off the train with my arms, landed on my shoulder, did like the double backflip thing. Didn't think much of it. I just ran off the side of the tracks. And my buddy, he got off the train because it got going pretty fast. So he got off at like 30 miles an hour and took those huge, long, leaping, running strides, like when you get off your skateboard going way too fast. And he took like 4 strides, and he caught this root that had grown out of the ground. And this ground was really hard from, being tracked over by cars and trucks and stuff that work on the railroad. And he just went boom. He caught his foot and it just like slammed him to the ground. It was like the whole ground shook. He hit so hard. And we were kind of giggling at him, the bunch of us. And I didn't think anything of it except for, geez, that must have really hurt. And he got up and shook off being stunned, and he said to me, and he said, "Bill, you seen your back?" I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Sure, it's red." And I had just chewed up my whole back when I came off the train backwards. And so, I'm at the doctor's office. And Mom wants to know what I'd done to have this happen. Of course, I just slipped on the railroad tracks. We've just been down by the railroad tracks. And the doctor nurse looked at me, like, that's a sad story. Anyway, so they took a scrub brush to my back because where my back had been kind of all chewed up from the rocks. There was just so much contamination and oil and gick from the train and grease and just general dirt and whatnot. And they had to get your back clean. So the only thing they could do is just smear my back with betadine, and then took a scrub brush to it. So I'm like swearing and stuff. And they're like, "It's okay, you can swear, that this kind of hurts." And then they didn't have a bandage big enough, so they just sprayed my whole back with plastic. It was like a plastic bandage thing. Anyway, that was just kind of par for the course growing up. I did the whole thing and coming off bicycles upside down and wondering, geez, I thought the road would have been a lot, rougher. This kind of feels like a slippery slide watching, and look backward and see your bike dancing off the side of the road. All this kind of crazy stuff. So anyway, I was just, kind of a typical kid in my town. But it wasn't until I was in the service and I'd been married, and just after I got married, it was like the second month after I was married, my wife got pregnant, and going through all that business. That didn't scare me. None of that was rough. Getting married, that wasn't terrifying. I was in the hospital when my first daughter was born, my first child was born. And, you know, it wasn't like when my father was a young man. Then they took the wives into the doctors, and then they didn't come back out, you know, until the baby was born. And, you know, you just sat in the waiting room, waiting for the big present, I guess. But we went actually in with our wives to go through the whole birthing process. And so that was very interesting and kind of exciting. But I never felt fear until the minute my child was born. Then it wasn't me anymore. Then it was this new little being that had just arrived, and they quickly wrapped up my daughter in a blanket, and she was a little jaundiced, so they took her away to go put her under a UV light. Of course, my job was to stay with the baby. Don't let the baby out of your sight, because I'm in a military hospital. You know, things can go wrong. It's not quite like a civilian hospital. So I remember following the baby everywhere she went, all through the birthing area center, where, you know, they take the baby's blood, they'd stick the toe and put it on the birth certificate, so there's a little blood there. And then they do a couple little strips of blood to go to the laboratory, and then, you know, they had to make sure the baby was warm enough, and then they put her under the UV light for the jaundice, because she was, you know, a little, like I said, her eyes were a little yellow, so that was a good thing. But it reminded me a little bit of all this nuts stuff that's going on in the news. So you got Joe and Vlad, and they got together and decided to, you know, give birth to this new baby called the Ukraine War. And so kind of the joke is neither one really knows who the father is, and then they see the baby and it turns out to be Z's child. It's just a joke. It's a joke. What do you think, Ellie? Is that a good joke?
Yeah, I laughed at it before the show.
Yeah.
It was spawned basically that way.
Huh?
I mean, if you look at it like a joke, it was spawned that way because Joe Biden was a part of Ukraine for a long time, and then here comes Putin, and then here comes the baby comedian
Well, they're
Zelensky.
both messing around, and they end up with this war. And
Yep.
I don't think they exactly saw it coming, you know. It kind of surprised them. And then this thing's born, and it's like got their attention, and it's dragging them around, you know. Because, like, I remember following my daughter through the hospital and stuff, and I thought, oh, she just likes football. And then I thought about it, you know. Think about Joe and Vlad. That they both have a football too, and they're like nuclear codes. It's kind of like as I was never afraid in my life until my child was born, and I can imagine these guys with this war starting. This might be the first time they've ever ran up against it and actually run into fear. Now that might just be an assumption on my part, but kind of think of it like that. And, as this child grows, this war grows, it's going to take them in all kinds of different directions. When you have a child and you're responsible for raising it, you think, oh, I'm going to be the perfect parent. I'm going to be able to do this and I'll be able to do that. And it turns out you're pretty much reactionary. You can't keep up with them. You're trying to go to work and do all the things you're trying to do, plus raise them. And, it's tough stuff. Now you've got these old guys, and they're trying to keep track of this war, and they're basically reactionary. And who's taken advantage of it but this guy over in China? I don't think Joe saw that coming. I don't think Putin saw it coming, actually. So, zip down my notes here. So, when your child's fragile like that, all you can think about is making sure that they're protected. But when these guys start these wars, it makes them fragile. The war's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to drag them around by their noses. Speaking of that, there's somebody else that's given birth to a new monster. It turns out that Janet Yellen's getting surprised by the economy, and I'm trying to keep track of the news that I saw this weekend. Anyway, she and the Federal Reserve are getting surprised by what's happening with these banks. And I think that their little monster is giving them a black eye. Kind of like when you fall down and give yourself a black eye. We've all done that, right? So, we've had tornadoes in Florida. And, Janet didn't need to cause these extra problems with this banking. Nature will create enough chaos all by itself. We don't have to help it along. I'm not sure some of these folks in the administration actually have figured that part out. They don't have to create chaos. It will come all on its own, just like this tornado that happened in Florida. Okay.
Hey, William?
Yeah.
Have you heard anything on that shooter that shot up that family down in Mexico, not Mexico, in El Paso, real close? Have you looked into that a little bit? Because what we've been able to find out.
Our favorite illegal alien.
Uh-huh.
He's our new favorite, right?
Yeah.
5 times across the border. He's been deported 5 times. What else?
The FBI gave the wrong name and the wrong picture and let it go for 2 days.
Turns out they can't find him.
So that gave them, well, see, William, the thing is the family.
How many of these illegal aliens can you actually find?
Right. Well, the whole thing was they gave out the wrong picture, the wrong name, which gave that guy 2 days to get out of the country or wherever he was going to go. Then they said, oops, because the family of this other guy said, this isn't him. And then when they looked into it, then they found the phone. I don't know if you know all this info. Then they found the phone, and found out who this guy was. Then they started looking for him yesterday. So Friday till yesterday, Sunday, this guy had a chance to move around and do what he wanted to get out of the country or disappear.
Well, here's the great part of it is the president just came out and talked about it. He's finally reacted to the whole thing now that it's, and the presidency said that this guy had an AR-15.
Oh, good grief.
And so, we need to get rid of all the AR-15s so that there won't be any more gun violence like's happening in Florida. The problem is this guy is like an illegal. He can't get a legal firearm. And if you take the legal firearms away from the people who need them to defend themselves, now imagine this guy comes in with an AR-15. He's been out drinking. He's out of his mind. He starts shooting everybody. What are you going to bring to that fight? Club? Are you going to take a knife to a gunfight? Are you going to take a revolver to an assault weapon? I mean, it's not an assault weapon, a semi-automatic weapon. We need to be able to have our weapons for just this reason, because you never know when somebody that's not supposed to be here is here and they're armed to their teeth and you have to stop them. And if you don't, 5 people died. And how did they die? Execution style.
Yeah. He
tapped them right in the head. And the children who did survive, there were some that survived, okay? A 9 or 8-year-old died, but mothers were covering the bodies of their children and protected their children with their bodies. They had no other way to protect themselves.
Well, William, they said that 3 of them went over to tell him that, because this was, I think, at midnight, and said that this guy shooting the guns off was disturbing the baby sleeping. And then he came out, started loading a weapon. So they ran back to the house. And the one lady that was shot said, "I'll stay on the porch. You guys run for cover." And he walked right up and shot her in the head, entered the house and started hunting people. The father of, or the husband of the mother said he scooped up his stepchild and ran into a bedroom, threw a dresser in front of the door, and he was with another gentleman that grabbed his kids. They hid in the closets while you said like the mothers were hovering over some of the other kids. And to distract this guy, he jumps out the window. And so he breaks in and starts shooting at him. And the only ones left were this stepson. So he shot him. And then, and the whole thing was, he said, William, they didn't have a right to come over and tell him not to shoot his gun on his property that he owned. So how did an illegal own property? Not only that, but they got at least 5 guns out of his house. So nobody's going to sell an illegal no guns.
He was probably renting, and he's here, not supposed to be here. He's been returned to Mexico. He has a list of DUIs. He probably knows himself that his body doesn't normally assimilate alcohol. It takes a lot longer for Native Americans, for instance, to assimilate alcohol. I don't know if you know that or not. Their bodies just don't convert the alcohol to, I can't remember exactly what chemical it is they convert the alcohol to, and then, taken steps to ensure that if he was inebriated, he wasn't, messing around with a firearm. This guy is not a young kid. He's older. He knows better. He's had time enough in life to be deported 5 times. He's not a little kid. So anyway, that's my opinion on it. And here's another part. So I live in an area that's a lot like that. When I go to our little gas station right here that's around the corner, it's got all the ball caps from San Francisco. It's got it with the marijuana leaf. It's got San Francisco teams. They're all here. This is my whole neighborhood is filled with illegals, and we don't treat them badly. We don't cause them problems. But here's one thing I have noticed is when it comes nighttime and there's been like a holiday, like New Year's Eve or Cinco de Mayo or whatever, they will go outside and some will get fireworks and do their thing with fireworks. But there's others that don't. You can hear the bullets that hit the roof when they shoot them up in the air, and then they run out of velocity. Gravity takes effect, and they fall down, and they hit the roof. You can hear them go clink, 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 clink on the roof as these bullets are falling out of the air. This is something that happens in a lot of these countries, and people aren't arrested for this stuff. And so they come to this country, and then they start engaging in this insanity. They get drunk. Somebody tells them, please, be quiet because our kids are trying to sleep. And then you have a maniac that loses his mind. What do you think about that, Ellie?
Yeah, pretty much. And the thing about it is their culture is, now, the way, he was, I'm going to say his culture was, they settle things by shooting people, because there's no law. West. So that's their culture.
Serious police. They don't have a justice system.
Nope.
And if you live in a near-failed state and you want justice or you want to protect your family, guess how it happens? You do it. You don't call somebody else to do it, because things will go very wrong. And so they bring that here. They haven't had time to assimilate. They're in the shadows. They're not going to be taught everything they need to know. They're not going to be taught. They're here because they just want money. They're not here to be like us. They're here to get the things that they want, not to become Americans. And so if they don't assimilate, they don't learn English, they don't learn to read, and if they only hear what they hear in a small, isolated group, they're going to get wrong information.
The whole culture thing of it, man, I watched a Dateline many, many years ago where this guy, and he looked like Saddam Hussein, and his daughters married outside Islam. They married Christians. And to protect the culture of Islam, the father felt it was necessary on the religion of Islam. He had to step forward as the father and killed these gentlemen. And he killed 2 of them, and his daughter, and one of her friends. And he said because that was the culture of Islam, that he was allowed to do this. So not only do we have the Islamics in here because we let the Muslims come in, but now we're getting all these different cultures that are used to no policing, and they feel under their own culture and their religion, that they take the law and they do what they need to. And this is going as far as beheading.
This isn't their fault. This is the way they grew up in their land. We can't like take and judge them based on what we think, because these people are coming in, and unless they're taught otherwise, they don't know how Americans are going to react to that sort of thing.
I don't think it really matters anymore, William, because there's so many of them coming in as groups that this is their culture, and they're in with their own people, and so it's allowed. And
well, if you're here to change our culture into your culture, that's the problem right there.
Yeah.
Because the people in the United States are from everywhere on earth. It will be pure chaos. You can't change American culture if you don't understand all the other cultures in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we jumped way ahead on my... So, do you want to go on to the next subject? Do you want to stay on this one?
No, that's fine. Go ahead and go.
So, I agree. Now, they say that they know where this guy's wallet is. They say they found his clothes. They have no idea where this guy's at. He could be here where I am in central Washington. He could be, in Chicago. He could be anywhere in the United States by now. And he knows how to blend in. And I'm sure he'll be very cautious about rules and laws and stuff like that now that the authorities are looking for him. But think about it like this. If guys like this are coming in, and one's got an AR-15, all right? What about the other ones that are coming in? What if they get other weapons, like Chinese folks that are coming in that now have an app that teaches them how to do it? It's like TikTok, but it's a Chinese app, and they're coming in and it's teaching them how to come across the border. What if one of them decides, to pick up a cement truck and decide to go on a rampage through town? We just don't know where the next thing's going to come from, because if somebody's going to do wrong, anything can be used as a weapon. It could be a car, it could be a truck, it could be, one could try to climb in an airplane and take it for a joyride, like this guy that was over here in Seattle, that was a baggage handler that had some dysphoria going on and decided he was going to be a one-way pilot with a turboprop aircraft, and drove it into the ground. We don't know what we're bringing in, and we need to know who's coming into the United States and their reasons for being here, not just what they state as they cross the border, but what their real reasons are. They need to be investigated. When I went in the service, I was investigated. Well, when people come into the country and get their citizenship, they're investigated in their countries. They want to see where they come from, what their story is before they bring them in and make citizens out of them. We're not doing any of that. We're not protecting our neighbors. We're not protecting ourselves. And, you know, that's one of the responsibilities of the government. Okay. So, turns out, moving on, this kind of has to do with the Trump, right? Because Trump was in office, and he built the wall, and then Biden says, well, this is a reaction to it. We don't want a wall like Trump. This is like the whole deep state Trump derangement syndrome, Trump fixation. I call it target fixation. It's like the globalists have target fixation. And do you know what target fixation is? Ellie?
Go ahead and explain it.
So when you have target fixation and you're a pilot, you're trying to hit a target, right? And it's on the ground, you're moving along at 450 knots, and you're trying to hit this target. Well, you can become so fixated in trying to hit the target that you crash your airplane into the ground. And now what we've got now is an entire government and a deep state and an entire globalist regime that's got this Trump derangement syndrome, target fixation, and they're running out of airspeed, altitude, and time, and they're going to drive their whole movement right straight into the ground. I don't think they even realize it, and it's sad. Right now they're trying to subpoena Trump's Secret Service agents. You know, there's a reason why they call them Secret Service, because they don't talk about their protectees. They don't talk about what they do to protect their protectees. And now they're going to be subpoenaed? Seriously? How does that work? First of all, the president had executive authority, and they don't have a right to know what the president was saying or thinking about or discussing with his cabinet. That's all protected. That's immunity. It's just like if a senator wants to excoriate somebody out here in the world, they can't be held in as causing somebody problems with their can't remember the exact term, but causing them problems with how other people see them out in society. They have a right to say anything that has to do with their office, to be able to be involved with legislating. And they can't be hauled into court and sued under defamation, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to do their part in the government. Well, the same thing holds true with executive privilege, and part of executive privilege is that the Secret Service doesn't talk about what's going on in the White House, because there are secrets going on there. They have to take care of national security. They have all kinds of issues to deal with in the world that, if that information came out, could start a war, could start something inadvertent. And it's like right now, so this reporter comes up to McCarthy today and says, so when the Republicans come back in power, you're going to cut off aid to Ukraine, right? Aiding McCarthy, Speaker McCarthy. And McCarthy says, no, we're going to support Ukraine because Russia jumped the border and they need to step back to Russia, so this thing will be over. And that's kind of the type of thing that could happen in the White House that would be inadvertent, that the world could get the exact wrong message because the presidency was talking over with his advisors. Shouldn't we continue to send weapons to Ukraine? You see what I'm saying? And that leads me to the next thing, propaganda. We're seeing all kinds of propaganda coming at us from all over the world right now, from the globalists, from the New World Order bunch, from this new Russia-China pact, from Ukraine. We're hearing all kinds of crazy stuff out of Sudan right now. So here's a for instance that I noticed today. So I heard this report out of Ukraine. So they're touting the fact that they control all the roads that go to Bakhmut and another town. I forgot to write that town down. But anyway, Bakhmut is one of them. That's one of the big battles going on in Ukraine. So that's like propaganda. So they're saying that they're in control of the roads that go to Bakhmut. What they're really saying is they've lost Bakhmut. They don't have Bakhmut proper anymore. All they have is the roads that go to Bakhmut. They're trying to control. Which is, we're seeing propaganda like that all over the trip, all over the places, trying to make negative things look positive. We're starting to hear rumbles about WMD, that Russia is going to use WMD, or Ukraine's going to use WMD. Well, it turns out that Blinken and Sullivan is pushing that right now out of the White House, outside of the presidency. So the state and one of the Security Council members are pushing this whole WMD, just like they pushed it for the whole Saddam thing. WMD. It's propaganda, people. Don't buy into it. Now, I got a bad ear here, so hold on while I flip this page, and I got to change my ear for my phone here. I hope you all have your caffeine, or some tea. Enjoy this with us. So here's another one. Global climate, whatever. So we have seaweed is reaching Florida, and it turns out it's a big old long hunk of seaweed, about, I guess, twice as long as the coast of the United States. And it's going to come up against the coast because of prevailing winds and tides. So this is something that's always happened. Back in the 1500s, sailing ships would get trapped in this very seaweed, and they would be stuck there sometimes for a month, waiting for strong winds or the seaweed to be pulled away by currents, whatnot. They were just stuck there. They would just have to sit and wait. They couldn't move forward. They were under power by sail, and they didn't have propulsion systems to be able to push their way out of these seaweed. The Sargasso Sea is named for the seaweed. It's called Sargasso. And Sargasso would trap ships all the time. So this doesn't happen every year where it comes up on the coast. But there are beds of seaweed out there in different amounts, and they've always been there. So this is, once again, the whole climate propaganda oozing up. Evacuations. No, this is great. Evacuations out of Sudan. Remember how I said that it was good that we got our people out because it could have been like Benghazi? Turns out that we were a little late getting our people out of the embassy there, and they had to send in SEAL Team 6 to pull them out. And today, they had to get a bunch of people. There were, let's see how many we had. I think it was 3 dozen Americans. They had to evacuate out by road, just like out of Tripoli, and move them to the Egyptian border in the middle of a war zone because they couldn't even fly them out. Climate. We're back to climate again. The Mississippi River is climbing, and you probably won't believe why. Climate. Because we got a lot of winter rains. We got a lot of snowpack. Have you heard any about this, Ellie?
Yeah, it's well, me and climate isn't very. It's not my best buddy, but to me, it's like you said, the seaweed is something that happens all the time, and the same way with like they're blaming this everything going on and these storms and all that on climate, when actually, if it was 5 to 10 years ago, we'd be hearing that because of the volcanic ash, we would be getting these storms that make it more fierce but drop the temperatures. So to me, it's this climate change. There, when you look at the data that the Democrats have, there's none. But when you look at the scientists, what they're saying is this is normal. And with everything going on with the earthquakes and the this ash that's floating across, it's going to give a greenhouse effect, which would make the summer hotter and right now cool the temperatures.
Right. It's cyclical. This is just what happens. The Mississippi was almost dry, last year? And then we get a rebound. Back in 83, I remember flying, 83 or 84. I think it was 83. I flew home to the middle of Utah from New Hampshire, and they had rivers going down the streets. They'd sandbagged the streets and turned them into little rivers. They had so much water, and they were trying to pump the Great Salt Lake out into the West Desert so it wouldn't keep flooding on the banks of the Great Salt Lake. Well, last year they were complaining about that the lake had dropped so much that there was the salt dust and fluorides blowing off from the lake bed because it dropped so much. Well, guess what? This year the lake's filling right back up again. You have to have the times when lakes go down, otherwise they'd be just spilling out every time you had a big snowstorm or whatever come by. This is how the world works, and they try to use everything as a propaganda vehicle. Okay.
Wait a minute. Now, Karen had a thing. She's seen a World War II film on propaganda from the Nazis.
Yeah.
I didn't see it myself, but go ahead.
So on YouTube, there's World War II, I guess you'd call them vignettes. They used to put them up in the theaters because they only had radios pretty much during World War II at home. And so if you wanted to see something, you went to the theater, which is good because a lot of theaters had air conditioning. You couldn't get air conditioning at home either. So I remember my dad talking about it. I think it cost them 2 nickels to get into the theater. And then they would have, before the show, they would have news clips, and they'd also talk about propaganda. They would talk about not sharing what was going on in your community with people outside your community to protect our servicemen, and how to deal with servicemen with family issues while the servicemen were away, all kinds of different things. And so that was a type of propaganda, but that was helpful also. So you have to look at who is directing the propaganda at you and what that means to your community. Look at the thing in both a personal space and in the space of your community, and then decide if that information is warranted, whether it's viable, meaning it's useful, or it's not. Otherwise, you can get led around by propaganda, and you become disconnected from your neighbors. You'll become disconnected from the community, but also know that the community can get disconnected as well. So you have to look at things in balance. And that's one of the problems with propaganda, is you're always trying to read between the lines. But during a time of war, there is no absolute truth being told out there. It's all a mixture. And you're not going to get complete information, and don't be surprised when you don't, because that's just the nature of war. War starts out by deceiving the enemy, and how they deceive the enemy sometimes is by deceiving their own population, because there's spies in your population. And if they can deceive their own population, they can deceive the enemy. And there's no way to separate out the general population from those that are trying to garner information in your society. So, the first thing to die in time of war is the truth. So take that to heart. Don't get too terrified when you hear things that are shocking, because they use fear and shock to get their way. They use fear and shock to terrify their enemies. The one thing they don't do is, here's one of the key to understand propaganda, is try to spread the love. You know what I'm saying? That's the one thing they don't do. But also, if somebody is, take that with a grain of salt too, because, well, Charles Manson, with his information, tried to spread the love, and he ended up with the Manson family. So be very careful during time of war. It is what it is. It's not an aberration. It's not something that's never happened before. This is just standard operating procedures by governments during time of war. And unfortunately, Vlad and Joe, they're I don't want what to call it, Ellie, the crazy baby, the war. They got this thing started, and now they're being led around by their thing, their baby, or look at it any way you want, really. Okay. Speaking of war, turns out I was listening to our fine folks up on the Hill, and it turns out that we have sent Bradleys to Ukraine, but they have not gotten any of the main battle tanks, no Abrams. And they haven't even got people trained yet. And they're going to use training for the Ukrainians. Is going to happen, I guess, in Germany or Poland. And then they won't be getting the tanks they're being trained on in Germany or Poland. They'll be getting other tanks from the United States. So will that training be adequate? We don't know. So I don't know if I know you guys haven't. In the military, every time you need something issued, they have to cut orders for it. So if you're in the military and the military decides they need you to do something, or they need to get you some equipment, they will cut an order for it. Well, that's a standard operating procedure for people in the military, and they do it all the time. Well, getting weapon systems for people that aren't in the military is not a standard operating procedure. And it is a cacophony of insanity that goes on trying to get everything lined up so that the orders that are cut can make their way all the way down through the system and then issue out equipment, especially to non-state actors. It is nuts. If you've ever been involved in getting military orders, that alone will almost give you PTSD. I mean, it is insane. Okay, moving on. We had a 4-star today, General Ken Oley. And he's saying that the majority of Russian military troops have not really been affected by this war in Ukraine. So what he's saying is, in effect, that Russia has yet to fight. That's really bad news if you're Ukrainian. And I just got information here that Buzz Aldrin from the Apollo program is being promoted to general. So that's interesting. Don't know what that has to do with anything else that's going on, but Buzz Aldrin, I don't have a problem with Buzz being a general, so he's being promoted to general. Ward Carroll was an F-14 backseater weapons systems officer, and his call sign is Mooch. So today, Ward, on his Mooch report, I don't know what my call sign would have been. What do you think, Ellie? Anyway, he's talking to a guy from the UK. Now, this guy from the UK is part of kind of their war college, and he says that there's becoming a problem that's being noticed by the UK's war college, that they're starting to believe it's becoming too expensive to train pilots. And so what they're looking at right now is, do we train pilots or do we get drones? It's a big controversy in the UK right now. All right. Going through my notes here, Ellie. I wrote it all down to be a good hostess with the mostest. I am the hostess, right, Ellie?
Yep.
All right. Well, that's good to know. We have a little thing going on across the pond. Turns out that we're going to have a coronation. Lots of pomp and circumstance. We're going to have a new king over there in a new English king over there in the UK. They're bringing the great stone of destiny down from Scotland because all kings in England were said to be enthroned upon the stone of destiny. There's a whole story behind the stone of destiny, but the important thing we need to understand for us right now is that it's kept in Scotland as part of the royal lineage of Scotland because King Charles is the King of Scotland, England. There's another part of England I'm not thinking of just right now, and part of Ireland, and of course New Zealand, Australia, our friends here to the north, Canada. All the the rights to the kingdom have been as these kings have sat upon their thrones upon the stone of destiny. So that's being brought down to Westminster Abbey for the coronation. So you want to watch that. That's something that has some historical meaning, and you could do some research on that, and there's quite a bit to be found on the Stone of Destiny. It's an interesting part of history that goes back almost to Rome. Actually, I think it may have bypassed Rome, but during the time of Rome. So that's going on, and that's a great historical event. Although, personally, I'm not excited about his kingship, but hey, I'm not in the British Isles. I'm not part of Canada, so that's just my opinion. All right, Ellie, that's my report, and I hope that all of you can see that some of what we're seeing right now is in the news is just some of I guess, I don't know, bastard children of politics, bastard creations of politics. We can look at it with a sense of humor. We don't have to look at it just with dread and trepidation. We can actually kind of feel sorry for some of these folks because they're creating a mess they're going to have to live with here into the future. So that's my report, Ellie, and I hope everybody has a great evening, and I hope that everybody kind of caught my humor. It might be a little messed up. It's really messed up, but that's just the key here with William. And like, subscribe, share, and enjoy his program with others. And, pop some popcorn, throw it at the William picture. It's all great stuff. I have kind of a different little melody that goes along with the starting of my show, kind of like the Jack in the Box song, a little bit cartoonish, a little bit, I don't know, carnival kind of music, not too serious, because we can't take all of this stuff too seriously. We need to look at it with, if you will, a yellow jaundice eye, like my daughter had when she was born. Okay, so we'll see you next Monday, and I'll also see you Wednesday with Ellie. Thank you.